Alright, this is the devlog for December 2022, which was last month. It's now January, so Happy New Year, etc, etc. Last month I unfortunately was sick. I'm usually never sick, but well, for the first time in literally like a decade or something, I was sick. So I unfortunately lost a week, and I had like a week that I had to get back into the rhythm. It's actually kind of crazy how quickly you lose your rhythm if you're sick for a week. It's just, but yeah, whatever. Let's just talk about the stuff that I could get done in the like basically 2 weeks I could be productive. I got the I have the shotgun reworked. So last month I said that I was reworking the shotgun. Well, it's done. So I've reworked the shotgun. I think I actually showed a image of it. So this is what it became. It is still a double barrel shotgun. Technically, you only have 2 shots in the chamber. And then you basically load 2 new rounds from the drum magazine. I think it looks very cool. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. It's very beefy looking. That was the main criticism I had of the old design. It was just a very skinny looking gun, which doesn't make any sense for a double barrel. But yeah, so the primary fire still works exactly the same as the last one, except I've changed the way the secondary fire works. Did I say secondary fire? Oh, whatever. The secondary fire is now different. So the secondary fire used to be that, well, in the very first version of the shotgun, it just fired both barrels at once, but that's kind of dull. In the second version, it fired a anti-gravity grenade, so people got like stuck in the air and you could shoot them. Well, that was fun. It was kind of like a just shoot them situation. Like it was kind of like, it's kind of like dumb to first send someone in the air and then shoot them with a specific. It was a boring alternate fire. So the alternate fire that I have now is something I'm very happy with. So what it does is it charges up a shot and it fires a charged shot. And it is very, very fun. I pretty much never used the double barrel shotgun. When I had the choice, I actually already talked about this last devlog. But yeah, whenever I had the choice between this shotgun, the normal shotgun, and the double barrel shotgun in the playtesting, I would always go with this shotgun because the old double barrel was just so boring and dull and awful. And this one, I actually think this one is way better, but it is a better choice now. There is actually like sometimes reasons to equip this shotgun instead of this shotgun. So yeah, I'm happy with it. It does ludicrous damage. It can pretty much one-shot all small enemies from a pretty impressive range. So yeah, it also penetrates through enemies, so you can actually wipe. If you are in a hallway, you can, and there are a bunch of enemies lined up, you can just charge up a shot and you can shoot through the hallway and you can just do massive damage. It's pretty great. So yeah, it's a very fun weapon now and I love using it in playtesting. So unfortunately, in order to make this weapon, I had to make a few changes to the weapon system. I actually have this recorded here in somewhere. I'm blind. Did I not put it in? New shotgun. Yeah, no, here it is. Refactor on weapons func code. So the weapon functionality code had to be completely rewritten in order to support charge shots. When I say the functional code, I don't mean like all of the decorative stuff, such as spawning sounds and spawning animations. That was all. I didn't have to change that. But the thing I did have to change was pretty much everything related to when can you shoot, how can you shoot, and what are all the timers and stuff. That all had to be changed. So it's now a hell of a lot better. The code is a lot better scalable. It is... Actually, I'm not going to go through the code because that always takes way too long. But the main benefits isn't just charging. And also, I didn't just add charging just for this weapon. There is actually also an energy weapon I want to make that also uses charging. So yeah. But there are a few things that I've changed with the weapons. I'm talking in circles. So what I have changed is, first of all, the weapon now... How do you say it? It feels more responsive. So... one problem that I had with the old weapon code was that the weapon code only supported an input buffer for the primary fire. So for those who don't know what an input buffer is, an input buffer keeps buffering an input and basically it's basically like you are holding down the button. So why I need that is if you have a semi-automatic weapon and you don't have an input buffer, what can happen is you can click twice, but your second click happens before the gun is ready to fire the second shot, which means that the gun will never fire the second shot. And that is very frustrating. So that's why we use input buffers. So I use an input buffer to make sure that if I click before the second shot is ready, the second shot will still go off because there is an input being buffered. Now, what was the problem? The problem was that both alt fire and reload didn't use input buffers. So for reloading and for both reloading and alt firing, you could have this problem where you click the button, you want to fire, but it didn't fire. This is now fixed, and I've also fixed it in a good way. So when I go to input, so the input handler now basically takes the last pressed key. So it takes the primary fire key and the primary secondary fire. I'm sorry if I keep changing in volume. I need to learn to stay in front of the microphone. I keep bending forward. Okay, so what? Yeah, so it takes the input buffer, then takes the last input buffer that was present, and then saves that. So if you press primary fire, then you press primary fire again, but then you press immediately secondary fire again, it overrides the input buffer, and then it will try and buffer for alternate fire. Which, a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but basically what that means in the end is that the gun feels better to use for the user. It's just more responsive. So yeah. Also for the charge mechanic, I've also made a material that can charge up. So you can see that the capacitors on the right side of the gun, they slowly charge up. So that's really cool. So yeah, that material I can then reuse for like other charging weapons. So yeah. Enough about this gun. Let's talk about the other big thing I have. We're already approaching 10 minutes. No, not 10 minutes because I started. God damn it. I get distracted way too quickly. Tutorial. So the second thing I've done this month is make a tutorial. So the tutorial, there has to be a tutorial because there are some things that just have to be explained to the player because otherwise they might not get through the level. So here's just the basic stuff. So look around with mouse and use movement was to walk around. And now of course place a mirror so you can actually see what your character is doing. So yeah, that's pretty cool. You can switch weapons. It then tells you how to fire and reload. Very useful. Jump. Yeah, just... Yes, I actually jump with right mouse button. This is actually a really good tip for everyone. Like, you should always use right mouse button for jumping. This is because in many games you aim down sight and it is actually less training on your hand if you aim down sight with spacebar and then use left click. That's just a small tip. I think right mouse button is better for jumping, but whatever. In case I've never shown it, you can very easily... I have a few... I don't think I've ever... it's in options, controls. Here, it's basically the Quake preset. The Quake presets put your... Quake is basically what I prefer, and standard FPS is basically what most people prefer. But yeah. So... Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you go into the menu and then you resume the info text is gone. That's... I'm not gonna fix that. It's like a really annoying way. It's basically a problem that's... It's a small problem that takes a really long time to fix because I have to then basically constantly recheck if you are in an info box and stuff and it's like whatever. Right mouse button, well, in the air. So yeah, this basically here explains wall jumping. So wall jumping is basically this. And you can only basically get over this if you know how to wall jump. So there are a lot of specific rules to wall jumping. So you can only wall jumping at the apex of a jump and you can only jump off one wall angle at the same time. So what do we mean with a wall angle? It's not very clearly specified, but you don't really ever need to know it. Like I never expect people to need more than one wall jump, but you can technically speaking jump off walls 2 times. No, actually more times. As long as that wall is not in the same direction. Okay, this is just confusing. Whatever. You figure it out. Yeah, so learning how to pick stuff up. So you can pick stuff up by walking over it or just pressing E. Learning how key cards work. Because there are a lot of gamers who have never played games where you have to use key cards to open doors, and it's the greatest thing. The opening of doors, not the people not knowing the opening of doors. Okay, how to pick up armor. I mean, not how to pick it up, but like what it does basically. Like just explaining that it gives you what resistance it gives you and how much armor points you get. And of course a conveniently placed mirror to see that your character actually equips the armor. So yeah. Telling how the flashlight works. So just a short, spooky, dark corridor where you can get into the firing range, which is not finished. The firing range isn't finished. I have to actually make some targets you can shoot and have those targets be able to respawn. So yeah, but yeah, it basically says how weapons with 2 ammo types work. It tells how recoil works so that you can crouch, reducing recoil, and that you have to also aim lower to compensate for the recoil. It says how alt fire. Yeah. Oh, and it takes. It also tells you how grenades work. So yeah. Explosive barrels, I mean. Melee weapons, whatever. This is probably an important part. It actually tells you what kind of switches you can press. So you can press these circuit breakers, which actually make audio now. That's part of the polishing process. You can press this button, and then you can hear the elevator. It teaches you that you can hold medkits. Okay, so this is a cool part. This is I actually had to make this for the tutorial, these lasers. They're part of the improving of the game logic system. So one of the things that I didn't really have for game logic is that triggers could only be triggered once. So these laser triggers are actually inherited from the generic trigger class. So I didn't have to completely redo the triggering system, whatever. So the way this works is, I mean, I don't have to explain how it works. I just have to say that you can now re-trigger triggers. So you can endlessly re-trigger stuff, and that is important for certain gameplay aspects, such as a door that can be opened and closed through a repeating trigger. So yeah. And this tutorial basically tells you how sliding works, and that you can slide under stuff. Yeah, so this is the end of the basic tutorial. So if a player finishes all of this, they basically know everything to get through the game. However, there is a few more advanced stuff that I can teach. So right now there's only one advanced tutorial remaining, and that is how air strafing works. I'm not gonna go into air strafing, but this is air strafing. It requires a very specific key input. And yeah. You will never need this to finish the game, because I can't expect people to learn air strafing. Even though air strafing for me is basically second nature. It's like biking. Once you learn how to bike, you never forget it. And it's same with air strafing. Like it's difficult to like get a grasp of it, but once you get it, you can do it forever. And whenever you play a game that doesn't have air strafing, you get very, very sad. So yeah. And now you get to the end. So I can, behind these doors, I can basically put more advanced tutorials if I want to. But for right now, what I have is good enough. I just need to finish some targets. So yeah. So the way it works is, I mean, those info boxes, they're just a trigger with info, and they have a string bound to them. So I actually use string tables now for strings. So these string tables are basically a centralized location where you can put your strings and then you can reference them in other places. And you can actually use formatting. So what I do is okay, this is actually part of another thing that I want to talk about. Which is the message system has been re-added. So let's actually get back into the game. No, first show the UI. So the message system is the HUD message console. I pink. Yes. And the HUD message console consists of 2 parts. It consists of tutorial strings, which is info strings basically, and a message box where messages can pop up. I actually showed this, I think, in an old video, but when I converted convert my game to C++, this was actually broken. Messages were broken, and I basically therefore re-added them, and they are now re-added. They completely work on C++. The only thing that happens is that from C++, it gives you an event update, and then here it actually creates the message. But most of it just handles it under the hood in C++. So when you walk into a trigger, it shows it, and when you walk out of it, it removes it. And that's basically all it does. So that's the tutorial messages. However, there are also the other messages that can be popped up. You actually probably saw them when I picked up ammo. So it can do a few different things. So for example, when I show ammo, if you look in the top left corner, you can see that it says that I picked up ammo. So ammo can with 7.62 cartridges. It says I picked up the key card. It doesn't say that it opened, but if you go to a keycard scanner and you press on it without having the key card, it will tell you that you have the wrong key card or don't have the key card, which I think was important to do. Even though it says clearly, like, this is clearly pink, there are some idiots who decided to be born colorblind, and for those people I have to probably say, like, hey, this is a pink key card. So yeah, pro tip, if you are born, don't pick the colorblind perk. Bad idea. So yeah, what else is there? There is the wrong notepad. That's the wrong. Oh yeah, further message system. And so refactor save system. Okay, I'll talk about that, but first I'll talk about the message system continued in the other developer map. All right, developer map. So two remaining things that are also given back as feedback is killing things. Okay, we can talk. So yeah, so it basically tells you when an enemy dies, it basically says like, hey, this enemy got killed by that enemy, and it basically takes a random string. So I have a whole bunch of random strings in the string library. So if I go to here, it's this kill log organic, so for organic things, and it basically tells you killed, got massacred by killer, and then killed and killer is replaced by the name of the entity. So yeah. That's just that, and I think I've explained it enough. I mean, I guess I'll talk quickly how it works. So when it works is you can basically, I can call a, alright, jump cut, I accidentally closed Unreal. Unfortunately, Unreal doesn't give you a warning when you accidentally press the close button, which can happen very easily if you want to close a window, and then you accidentally click twice because, yeah. And then you close Unreal, and just Unreal says, okay, you want to close, goodbye, and then you have to restart. Just okay, so the way it works is I have to get the player controller first, and I have to wait for intelligence to finally catch up. Oh shit. It's in here somewhere. So yeah, here we have if attacker ref get the player controller. So here the player controller basically... No, wait, this is the wrong one. Yeah, create and send damage message. It's here. Sorry. So create and send damage message. It says... So this is called in the damage function. So int damage and the damage owner. It gets the player controller. It then makes a message. And it then sends that message to player. So send message to player. That goes to the player controller. From the player controller, it then goes to the widget messages. So it then inserts the message. It's gonna take a while. I just started, yeah. Come on. So by insert message, it goes to an interface. So this is the widget interface. So I have to go to the widget class. Preferably the header of the widget class. SK widget. SK widgets And then here on insert SK widget, then it goes to the blueprint. So when you call that, it goes to message. This is the wrong one. Message console. And then here you have invert on insert message, which is what's here. So on insert message. So that's just basically, and then it executes the function. So yeah, that's basically how that works. And I know I said that I avoid blueprints as much as possible, but when it comes to UI is so much quicker to do graphically than program-wise. It's just I'm not gonna program UI, like it's just too annoying. This is a small performance hit, but it's such a minuscule performance hit, and since none of this has a tick function, it's honestly not that bad. So I need to now hurry up because it's starting to get long-winded, this devlog. Refactor on the same system. Oh, that's gonna take so long. Okay, movement fixes. I'm just gonna quickly do all of the tiny fast things that are quick to explain. So one of the problems I had with the movement system was that, yeah, the Unreal always has stutters when you restart it. It's very annoying. So one of the problems with I had with the movement systems was that the movement capsule, when you were walking, also checked the ceiling. So it checks the floor and it also I mean, it doesn't check the ceiling, it checks the floor, but in order to check the floor, it first goes up and then goes down. So you have your palm position. The palm position tries to move forward and then it needs to check if there's a floor. So what it does is that I first move up. That's what I used to. I first moved up and then I send the movement capsule down and then I basically trace to see if there is a floor or a step that I can step onto. The problem is because I was moving up first and moving down first, I was hitting the ceiling with my movement capsule. And the movement capsule basically got stuck on the ceiling. So when I walked forward, instead of falling down, I would basically like get glued to the ceiling. It was really weird. But that's something I finally fixed. And that also kind of like fixed a weird problem where it was possible to slowly glitch your way through a very specific wall. So yeah. That's a movement fix. What else do I have? Physics fixes. So yeah. Physics objects now correctly react to bullets. They were invisible to bullets before, but now they correctly fall off. That's great. This is boring. Why am I even showing this? I'm sorry. So more game logic support. So this is something I can't really show because it's abstract, but I've added, just like what I explained before in the tutorial with the retriggerable triggers. There are a lot of game logic stuff that I really need that I have not technically required yet, but I probably need in the future. And I've done a bunch of refactoring on it and basically making sure that I have the game logic required for doing very logical things such as spawning objects, removing objects, being able to have scripted sequences, stuff like that. I've made stuff like that for it, and yeah, I've not really implemented it yet, but it's there and I can use it. More level decorations. Yeah, so this is, again, not going to show it, but just I've been working on more level decorations. E1 M3 fog effect is fixed. I think I talked about this last devlog, but E1 M3 had a broken fog effect that I had to replace. I have a new fog effect, works great. And it runs better on performance because I have actually now split E1 M3 in multiple sub-levels in order to hide some objects. So the performance in E1 M3 is now better. Full damage fixes, yeah. So full damage fixes is for the AI. The AI so jumping enemies used to kill themselves if they jumped from a high platform down to a low platform. So before they would basically just face plant down and die. And I've added a system that basically prevents jumping enemies from taking full damage as long as they land in the position they want to land in. So obviously I need to be careful with making enemies immune to full damage, because if I make them, let's say I make them completely immune to full damage and then they get knocked around and then they fall like 10 floors down on the street, but then they're still alive because I've said that while jumping they should be alive. But then if they land in a really low spot, then they are basically out of bounds. So what I did is that there is basically a check that checks if the jumping enemy got close, or at least is on the same level where the jump want to land, and only then will fall damage be cancelled out, so they don't take fall damage. So yeah, just a smart little fix. New fists animation, yeah, so fists used to be really low to the ground, which means that if you had a very low FOV, you could not see your fists because they were basically below your screen. But I've basically fixed that, and now it's better. So yeah, it's just more stoic and a powerful pose. Yeah. One problem I am having with the arms is that the arms are basically like chicken winging when you look down. This also happens with weapons. The pistol actually doesn't have it, but some weapons do have it. I need to fix that. So yeah, it's actually in my to-do list here. Arm eye case is really bad and needs to be fixed. So yeah. Notes. What else is there to remain? Improved audio visual feedback. So you've already heard that. Switches, elevators, a lot of stuff that didn't have audio now has audio. So that's being worked on. So yeah, with all of that done, you can exit this video now. We're now just gonna talk about one boring thing, and that's refactoring on the save system. So in order to show that, we're gonna go to SK trigger save system save status interface. Specifically, this struct fsave generic struct. I'm pretty sure I've shown this before. So a problem I had with this struct was that this struct used to use, instead of arrays, it used basically just free values. So I basically had place for free values. So I had boolean 1, boolean 2, boolean 3. So I could basically store in a generic save struct for, oh, by the way, a save struct, this fgeneric save struct, that's based for one object. So when I save the game, every object gets a save struct to store its data in. So that's why you see object class, child actor class, object name, location, rotation, velocity, level name, etc. Now, there are also, of course, object-specific variables that also need to be saved. So the problem is that if I had more than 3 booleans, I couldn't put my boolean anywhere, which means I had to basically just put it in the integer. But if the integer was full, I basically had no place in the save generic struct to place the variable. So, for example, if I go to trigger, I think trigger has a lot of values. I should go to the C file. So here. So write save status interface here. So this used to be boolean 1 is be active, boolean 2 is remote only, boolean 3 is be can retrigger, which was of course added this month, last month. So I have fixed this finally by turning all of the booleans, all of the individual variables into arrays, which I technically speaking already used for one of the variables, so I don't understand why I didn't do this before, but I pretty much had to completely redo all of the assigning of save variables in all of the objects that can be saved. But it does now work. However, I still had to do one additional thing. So in the save system, I already was there. So in the save system, I had a problem where you have an actor, and then you can also have child actors. You have a class and you have child classes. The problem is there are some items such as destructible. I have destructible, SK destructible, which has savable variables, but then I also have lamp, and lamp is a child class of destructible, and lamp also has its own specific savable variables. So the problem I used to have was that in SK lamp I also had to save the variables of SK destructible, and because of the way that I had written the code, it wasn't possible to call the function, then call the underlying function, and then basically have every class handle their own saves. So every time when you made a new savable actor inherited from a other savable actor, I know this is horrendously confusing, it means that if you had to, in that new actor, you had to also specifically say which variables you wanted to save of the parent class, which was horrible. Which means if you had a change in the parent class and you didn't change it in the child class, it means that it would break. And that was just so bad. And the problem is that if I had to rename or split that function in multiple functions so I could actually handle it sequentially in child classes, I also had to change all of the save logic. Thankfully, my smart programmer brain came up with a solution. So what I now have is I basically have two write save. So the problem was in write save status. So in write save status, I now actually have it defined in the abstract. So write save status now makes a save struct, and then it calls function write save inherit. So if I go to sklamp, I can see that I've overwritten write save status inherit. So when I call the save system for lamp, I first do a super, which means I get the underlying parent class. If you know nothing about programming, this is such malarkey. You have probably had no fucking clue what I'm even talking about, but it's genius. So it actually calls the underlying class, and then it basically writes the functions that need to, the variables that need to be saved. And when it's done with that, it passes the struct, that's why it's called pass struct, passes the struct to the lamp, and then the lamp puts its own variables in it. And then once it's all done with that, it then stores it into the save generic struct. So the entire save file, basically. And that's basically how I fixed the whole save system with child and parent actors, child and parent classes. So yeah. There is one thing that's bad about this save system, and that is that I have to, in the correct sequence, also call back the function, the variables. So for example, when I add a function to the array, I have to remember that the first enumeration, so enum_vars lamp state, I have to make sure that enum_vars 0 is casting to lamp state and enum_vars 1 is casting to true lamp state. If I fuck this up and accidentally swap them out. So that's one problem with the save system that still remains, is that it is pretty easy for me to make a mistake and save the wrong variable to the wrong. Basically, the biggest danger is that I accidentally mix up variables. So I have to be extremely careful, and I also have to double check that I get the correct save variable and save it to the correct variable in the object. So if I go back to save system, so one way, if I have to completely redo this is not how I would do it. So I wouldn't have all of these separate arrays, which is boolean vars, int vars, enum vars, float vars, timer vars, vector vars. I wouldn't do it like that. Like, this is honestly not very good. What I would do is I would make a struct that basically saves any variable in the same array. Actually, it would be a map. So what I would do is I would make a array map, and it would have 3 separate variables. It would have a identifier for the variable, so what is the variable called? It would have a data type identifier, so what is the data type? And then I would have a third field, and that field would basically be binary data. So binary data can be any data type. So I would just have an array of 3 separate variables, and with those variables, I could then say in the save system, okay, I want to get the value that has identifier X. So I'm saving variable with variable X with identifier X, and when I then get the save, I'm saying like, oh, I want X, and then it gives you X with the correct data type. That's how I would do it if I have to completely redo this. So then I don't have to like keep track of like where in which array number did I save radius, for example. I can just type save system, this save reference, get object with ID, get variable with ID radius. That would be way better. So yeah. But I don't have time to do that. And honestly, this is fine as long as I make sure that I remember which number corresponds to which addition in the array. I'm fine. And that's basically it. Okay. What is still remaining? I'm close to done. There are just a small things that I need to do. I need to finish the tutorial. There are a few missing decorative stuff that I need to add. There are a few unlockable stuff I want to do. So I think I need like 1, maybe 2 months of work on the game, or at least the demo itself, and then I start looking of how I can actually like put the game on Steam. And that's basically what I will be doing for the next 2 to 3 months. So I expect 3 months out. I know I have said like multiple times before in a devlog that okay, the demo is finally starting to like come out in a few months. This time I'm actually convinced that that is true, because I actually have an idea of, previously I'm honestly stupid that I said in those previous times that I was gonna bring out the game in a few months. Now I am actually confident 100% that I can bring out the game in like the next 3 to 4 months. That's at least the demo. And then once the demo is out, I can just start making content. Like the entire foundation of the game will be done. And I could just start rapidly make content. Because the thing that I want for like remember is that the 3 levels, the 3 demo levels that I made, I actually made in record time. Like I made them real quick. So once like I'm happy with the foundation, I can just rapid fire develop all of the levels, all of the content, and I think I can do it in a reasonable time frame. So it's not like it's gonna take 5-6 years before I can bring out the full game. How long that exactly would take, I don't know, but at least the demo should be done in 3 to 4 months.